Welcome to Beyond the News. I'm Faye. The Chinese Liaoning Carrier has been a star in news reports recently. Back in 10 April, the commander and his deputy commander of the US USS Mustin Destroyer were observing the Chinese Liaoning Aircraft Carrier from roughly 3 kilometers away, while none of the Liaoning's guarding destroyer was in sight. In the photo, Commander Briggs and his deputy looks very relaxed with his feet up watching the Liaoning Carrier, showing they take their PLA counterparts lightly, said Lu Li-shih, a former instructor at Taiwan's Naval Academy. After this little sightseeing event, the Liaoning Carrier was trying to escape, but it ended up stuck not far from the sightseeing location for 2 days, and heavy black smoke was seen again spitting out of the Liaoning Carrier. Apparently, the carrier was experiencing an engine fail, but unfortunately, there was no waterside assistance service nearby to help. And this is not the first time Liaoning Carrier had some kind of malfunction. Back in 2017, Liaoning sailed to Hong Kong for mighty display. During this event, Liaoning Carrier just kept spitting out black smoke. Local Hong Kongers were concerned about the air pollution it could cause and asked the Hong Kong government to regulate the smoke. From these two events, we can see this Liaoning Carrier doesn't seem to be made with the highest quality. So how did this China's first aircraft carrier come about? Let's go through the genesis of the Liaoning Carrier, and believe me, this is a wacky story. The very first thing you need to know, Liaoning Aircraft Carrier is actually not made by China. It is a semi-complete carrier Ukraine built for the Soviet Union in the 1980s. In the 1980s, the Soviets began constructing two more promising Kuznetsov-class carriers, a class of fixed-wing aircraft carriers operated by the Russian and Chinese navies. However, the fall of the Soviet Union left the second vessel in its class. The Varyag was only 2/3 complete in Ukraine, lacking its armament and electrical systems. Construction ceased in 1992, and the cash-strapped Ukrainian government did its best to pawn off the good-for-nothing 55,000 tons of inoperable metal rusting in its shipyard. Russia, India, and China all said no to the bargain sale. But a decade later, China had a sudden change of heart. But buying an aircraft carrier is still not something the international community wants to see when everyone is promoting peace and love. So, in order to avoid scrutiny, Chinese military approached a former basketball star turned businessman, Xi Jinping. Their plan was to have Xi buy the carrier Varyag as a private citizen, and saying that he will be making it into a floating casino. Once the political wings were more favorable, the PLA could collect it from him. To cut the story short, Xi with CCP's money bought the rusty, half-done aircraft carrier Varyag with $20 million by June 2000, which is a pretty good bargain. Just as everything was ready to go for Varyag to sell to China, the carrier's 4 engines were packed in grease seals, plus a few tons of blueprints were sent overland to China by truck, and a Dutch towing company was ready to tug the 306-meter-long vessel all the way to China. What else could go wrong, right? Wait for it. It wasn't after 500 days of the Varyag being towed in the circles of Istanbul, after the Turkish government denies its passage to the Mediterranean while the Bosporus Straits. The Turkish maritime minister worried that this 606-meter-long metal frame could not move on its own power, as it had no power. It might spin around and block the Bosporus Straits to all shipping, or run into one of the bridges connecting the two halves of the Istanbul, because the straits are only 700 meters wide at that narrow west point and require at least 6 major course corrections to navigate. Hundreds of ships had suffered accidents there in the past. The then Varyag and now Liaoning spent 16 months racking up $8,599 US a day in towing fees. Finally, Beijing had a change of heart on the matter and stepped in August 2001, doing what they do best, promising major concessions on tourism to persuade the Turks to let the Liaoning pass. Finally, on November 1st, in an operation involving more than 24 tug and emergency vessels, the Varyag, which is a Liaoning, was towed through the Bosporus without incident and traversed the Dardanelles the next day. The hard part was over. That's what they thought anyway. Except for the sea storm with 60 miles per hour winds that struck the rudderless vessel of Liaoning off the island of Skyros 2 days later, causing it to snap its tow lines. It took 2 more days to recover the runaway carrier's metal shell. Tragically, a Portuguese sailor fell to his death while helping reconnect it to his tons. In the Chinese way to look at it, it is not a good sign for the Liaoning. In March 2002, the carrier finally arrived at the port of Dalian in Liaoning province, which would land the carrier its name in Chinese service. 3 years later, it was put into a dry dock to allow for an extensive refit process, or should I say, it was an extensive facial job, including sandblasting away all the rust and restoring and installing the engines in 2011. The Liaoning was commissioned on September 25, 2012, and the first J-15 landed on it a month later. A home-built steam turbine carrier called Shandong, based upon the Liaoning, was soon put to sea in 2019. And there are other 4 carriers in the making. Well, the Chinese Communist Party does have the ability to copy things very fast. The way they're saying it, they are going to do the aircraft carriers like producing dumplings, that is a lot of them in a short time. A great leap forward for the carrier making. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, they can produce things in quantity, that is for sure, but what about quality? Regardless of how China was promoting frantically this old Russian discarded ship, the Liaoning is hardly equal to any of the US carriers. In addition to its smaller air wing and lack of a nuclear power plant, its steam turbines are prone to breaking down, and the ski jump deck limits the fuel and weapons load its fighters can carry. However, it afforded China a leap forward in its naval construction program. According to Xi Jinping, a naval officer told him that the Varyag saved China 15 years of research and development. Asia Time 2017 article summarized the Liaoning carrier perfectly, just an old Russian ship that can't fight. But compared to what the Americans carrier can do, this Liaoning is a thing from the Americans Maritime Museum. That was why a US destroyer can casually approach the Liaoning within a few thousand yards away, and the Liaoning had to flee away from the US destroyer, while other 2 Chinese guarding destroyers went missing from the Liaoning formation, and the rest of the 2 were a lot further away to Liaoning than the US destroyer. And during the runaway, the Liaoning's engines broke, and it had to stall for 2 days in the cold of the sea water. I can't help it but keep imagining, will the US destroyer's commander Briggs and his deputy suddenly decide to play some golf and using the Liaoning as a practice target? That would be quite a story, wouldn't it be? Please let your imagination run wild and leave me some comments. I think we have enough for the large for today. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel and share the video to your friends. I'm Faye from Beyond the News. Until next time.